Welcome back. Today I want to talk to you about a topic that's near and dear to my heart, something that I've spent a lot of time with over the past couple years, and that I think a lot of us today could benefit from some of the lessons that I've learned. And I'm not the only one who's learned these lessons. There's many people who've gone before me and learned these and shared them with you all, but I wanted to share my particular experience. I want to go over marksmanship and physical fitness, as oftentimes people don't correlate these two, and that I believe that's a great oversight in today's shooting community. Now, you might look at me and say, all right, the fat guy's here to talk about physical fitness. But the thing that qualifies me is there was a time I was much larger than what I am right now. I want to start with you by going over where I was. Where I was 2 years ago. I was 405 pounds. For reference, I'm 6'3", and no, I won't ever try and justify it. 405 pounds was far too heavy. I was working in an ER that was somewhat close to my home, and I had a doctor there who had begun talking about the ketogenic diet. And he wasn't really inviting anyone to do it. He was just talking about his plans of doing it, as this was something that he did every year, not because he was overweight or out of shape. It's just something that he liked doing. Well, the conversation kept going and going, and a few people said, well, hey, I'd really, I'd like to do that with you, or I'm kind of curious about what's going on. So it turned into a small group. And it didn't take too long until after that, someone looked at me and said, hey, Chuck, you going to do this with us? And you can't be 405 pounds, and when someone offers you to go on a diet, you say no. And if you do, you need to reevaluate where you are. So, of course, I said yes, and I was familiar with the keto diet. I had tried it once or twice before, and I hadn't stuck with it, so it hadn't worked for me. But we started January 1st, and our goal was to run until March 31st. And we wanted to see who could lose the most weight, who could be the most consistent, who had the most discipline, and they had come up with several metrics of measurement, and by the end of it, someone won a monetary prize. To this day, I don't remember what it was. And we did it. There were 15 of us that did it, and collectively we lost 271 pounds. That's a lot of weight. That was more than the average adult male, at least more than the average adult male should be. And I myself, I had lost 60 pounds of that just to me in 3 months. And that was a real eye-opener for me. I didn't have to stay stuck where I was. I didn't have to keep being morbidly obese. I could do my job, but I could have done it better, and I didn't look good. I didn't feel good. I couldn't perform to an adequate standard. I couldn't get down in field positions. I'd go to lay prone and I'd sit there and I'd kind of have the reverse worm effect of laying flat down on my face because I had so much stomach that was sticking out. I couldn't get my elbows up in front of me to get into a good field shooting position. I had a hard time concealed carrying my handguns because my hips stuck out so far that it would push my gun into my shirt and it would cause printing. Of course, when I started concealed carrying, I was not that size, but over the years I'd become that size. So I realized, hey, this thing could work. I could be onto something here. This could be the start of a significant change. And in my book, 60 pounds was a significant change. So I had asked that same doctor, if I keep doing this, should I keep doing it all the time? Should I space it out? And he said, well, you really ought to space it out. Someone your size, if you lose too much weight too quick, you'll have a lot of excess skin left over. And he's like, you're not really going to harm yourself, but there's a better way to do it. And he said, I just want you to do keto for 3 months every year. And now this will take you a couple years to do, but do keto from January 1st to March 31st every year until you hit your goal. A very simple plan, not hard to follow. Keto's a fairly simple diet. You figure out what foods you like, and you figure out what foods you like and it's compatible with keto, and you have some of it on hand. It's really not hard. You don't have to count too many calories. Keto naturally decreases your drive for hunger. You don't get nearly as hungry, nearly as quick. On keto, there were a lot of times I would eat one normal meal a day and I would feel perfectly fine. I didn't feel a need to eat more. Now, of course, you can eat more, and that's not going to hurt you. But if your body's not telling you to eat, then don't eat. Of course, unless you have an eating disorder, then you should probably eat. So I did that first 3 months, and I was amazed with the results that I had seen. But I had 9 months until I was going to start again. So I wanted to make sure that I filled my time with something productive and that I wasn't just going to turn right around and reverse all the benefit that I had just gained. So I started working out. I started doing light running. Of course, at the time, I was still about 350 pounds, so it was kind of hard for me to run. But I would do some light jogging, some rowing, a little light weightlifting. I didn't do a ton of weightlifting because I've got some prior injuries that make it difficult for me to do that. But the point was, I stayed consistent. I didn't fall off. I didn't go back and gain all the weight. And I would weigh myself at least, typically once a week or once every other week. And I gave myself a 5-pound grace window. I'd go 5 pounds up, 5 pounds down. So long as I stayed in that range, I was okay. For those that don't know, your weight naturally fluctuates by several pounds over the course of a couple days, a couple weeks. So if you step on the scale on Monday and you're 220 pounds, but you step on it Friday and you're 225, well, that doesn't necessarily mean you gained 5 pounds of fat over 5 days. It just means you've got more water retention left in your body. And there's several contributing factors. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not going to sit here and explain it to you. But what I will tell you is based on my experience, that's a perfectly natural thing to happen. So after those 9 months went by, here we were, January 1st. This would have been January 1st of last year at the time of recording this video. And I decided, hey, let's do it again. It worked incredibly well the first time. Let's see what we can do now. So I did it again. I didn't lose the exact same number, but I lost pretty close to it. I had lost about 45, 50 pounds, which in 3 months, 45, 50 pounds, there's not too much more you can ask for out of that. So by that time, I had made it down to around 310 pounds in that neighborhood. 310 pounds was still overweight, but it was much, much better than the 405 that I had started at. So maybe I didn't reach the 275 that I had in the goal book, but 310 compared to 405, we're definitely moving in the right direction. So that gives you an idea as to where I am now. Today I stand 6'3" and somewhere between 295 and 300 pounds. I haven't seen a scale in a couple weeks, so that number may not be completely accurate. And the reason I'm bringing this to you is because we're getting right up towards the end of December, which means January 1st, I start right over again. I'm back to keto. I go, and I'm very strict with it. I don't allow myself a lot of cheat days. I don't allow, I'll have this and it'll be okay. Discipline is key here, folks. I want you all to take from this. Discipline is key. I don't care how you do it. I don't care if you do carnivore, keto, Weight Watchers, Atkins, calorie counting. I don't care what you do, because what you do doesn't matter so long as it's not eating for 3 weeks at a time. You'll be perfectly fine. I want you all to take this, if it's applicable to you, and find something that works for you. I know some people that keto, they feel way too restricted and they don't stick to it, but hey, a calorie count works for them. If you're that person, that's fine. I don't care if you do it like me. I just want you to do it. That's all you have to do, is start. The first steps are always the hardest, folks. But once you get past those first steps, now when I start keto, it's easy. I know what I can eat. I know what I like. I have several preset meals that I eat. And, some of the restaurants that I frequent, I've got meals that I know, hey, I can eat this here and this is perfectly okay for the diet. It doesn't matter how you do it. Just do it. But no good plan goes anywhere without some goals and without some rewards. So what should your rewards be? I'm going to tell you right now, if your reward is eating half a chocolate cake, you probably got the wrong mindset. The reason a lot of diets fail is because people want to revert to their old ways. They want to do their diet, they reach their goal weight, and they say, great, awesome, I made my goal weight. And they go right back to eating the same crap they were eating before. You can't do that. It's the definition of insanity. For those of you that don't know, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing multiple times and expecting a different result. You cannot eat the same garbage day in, day out, and expect a different result all because you lost weight. You're going to turn right around and gain it back anyways. And you're going to have done all that hard work and it will be for absolutely nothing. You might as well have lit that time on fire and thrown it down the drain. You won't ever get it back. So what are some good, healthy goals that we can establish towards? I'm not going to tell you what your goals should be. What I will tell you is what my goals are. You can feel free to use my goals. You can come up with something completely different. And if you look at my goals and say, that's stupid, that's fine. Then just adapt it for your own goals. But make sure you have a goal. Make sure there's an end point in mind here. And for me personally, I don't necessarily care, if my ideal weight is 220 and I only make it down to 225, I'm not going to sit there and get wrapped up over 5 pounds. To me, that's not my goal. If that's your goal, hey, that's great. I'm not here to tell you that you're wrong. So that being said, what are some of my goals? Well, the first goal is I want to be able to run an 8-minute mile. Why? I don't really have a great answer for that. I just know that an 8 mile is a good time for a mile. And I know that, through the physical agility tests that I have to do for my jobs and jobs similar to mine, 8-minute miles are typically pretty well sought after. They may not be the best, but they're definitely not the worst by any stretch of the imagination. So my second goal, I want to be able to shoot comfortably from all field positions. Now we're going to put a caveat with that because some field positions aren't going to feel like sitting in your lazy boy, but that's not the point. I want to be able to hold these field positions and make accurate shots. If I can do that successfully without causing myself great pain, we'll consider that a win. Now my third goal, I want to be able to hike a great distance, hike several miles, carrying my gear, carrying my rifle, and when I get to the end of that hike, be able to make an accurate shot or make several accurate shots. For me, this is a measurable and attainable goal because I have the land and the facilities to be able to hike great distances and then shoot where I'm at. You may not have access to that, and that's okay if you don't. Feel free to adapt that or completely not use it. It's not a huge deal. And my fourth goal, and this kind of ties in a little bit with the third goal, they're kind of similar, but they're a little bit different. I want to be able to do physical activities and then shoot. So if you need an example of this, I want you to use one of the best drills that I think for physical fitness and marksmanship. Paul Howe from Combat Shooting and Tactics. As far as I know, he is the developer and the mind behind the 107 drill. And what the 107 drill is, for those of you who are not familiar with this, it's done on a 100-yard range. You start in the prone at 100 yards, take a shot at a target, get up, run to 75, take a kneeling position, take a shot on a target, get up and run to 50, drop to another kneeling shot, take that shot, get up to 25, you're standing, get up to 7, standing for a headshot. You need to have that tighter degree of accuracy there at the end. And then you repeat this for several repetitions. Most people, when they start doing this, cannot do the full set, and that's fine. I right now can't do the full set, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I can. But if you can do just one set and work on that for a while and then move up to being 2 sets, 3 sets, 4 sets, eventually you'll get where you need to go. And I'm trying to go off memory here. I may be a little wrong, but I do believe that it's 10 sets. So that would be 10 repetitions of 100 to 7 back to 100. And when you go from 7 back to 100, that is a run. You don't take shots on the way back. That's a straight run from 7 to 100. So you're only shooting while you're advancing. You're not shooting in that retreat back to 100. And if you need to modify this, maybe you've only got a 50-yard range and you need to do this, that's fine. Make it adaptable for you. I would much rather see videos of people who said, hey, I can't do the 107, but what I can do is a 50 and 7. And, I made it harder by doing this. I make myself do sit-ups and push-ups, or I make myself do planks, or I make myself shoot at a smaller target. I don't care what you do. Just get out and do something, folks. That's what I want you to take from this. Get up and do something to make yourself better today than you were yesterday. And if you're looking back a year from today and you can't see a definitive improvement, far be it for me to tell you you're wrong, but I know for me, that's wrong. So folks, I share this with you just because I want you to understand that I'm going through this. I'm not telling you about something that I've never done. I'm not an expert. This is not my forte. This is not even what the main topic of the channel is going to be about, but it is a significant part of my journey. And I know a lot of you watching this could be standing in some very similar shoes as to what I was. If I can tell you about this and it helps you, hey, that's great. If this doesn't apply to you, then it doesn't apply to you. Go hit 100 push-ups and 100 sit-ups and go run your 6-minute mile. That's fine. Get up and do something, folks. Do something to make yourself better today than you were yesterday. That's what we need to take away. Folks, thanks for joining me. And until next time, this is Chuck with Practical Marksmanship Reloaded.